On a distant planet, war raged like a wild storm. The sky was gray, and thick smoke filled the air. Buildings lay in ruins, crumbling from the battles that had lasted for years. Different alien groups fought for power, and the land was scared from the fighting. In this chaotic world, fear and sadness ruled the hearts of the aliens. They had lost hope, thinking nothing could change. Suddenly, a bright light appeared in the sky. A strange ship descended, cutting through the dark clouds. The aliens paused their fighting, curious about this new arrival. What could it be? As the ship landed with a loud thud, everyone held their breath. Was it an enemy or a friend? The door of the ship opened with a hiss, and out stepped a human, a Deathworlder. He looked different from the aliens. His skin was pale, and his eyes sparkled with excitement. He wore colorful clothes that seemed out of place in the war zone. The aliens stared at him, their weapons lowered in surprise. Who was this brave creature who dared to enter their dangerous land? The Deathworlder stepped forward with a big smile. He waved his hand and shouted, "Hello, I'm here to bring some fun." His voice echoed, and the aliens exchanged confused glances. Fun? In a war zone? They had forgotten what fun felt like. One alien, tall and covered in scales, took a cautious step forward. "What do you mean by fun?" he asked, his voice deep and wary. The Deathworlder chuckled. "I have a surprise for you. A theme park." He spread his arms wide, as if revealing a great treasure. "It's full of games, rides, and laughter. We can forget about the fighting and just enjoy ourselves." The aliens looked at each other in disbelief. A theme park? Here? In the middle of their broken world? They had seen many things in this war, but this was something new. Some laughed, thinking it was a joke. Others felt a spark of curiosity. Could it be possible? "Why would you build a theme park here?" another alien asked, crossing his arms. "This place is filled with danger and sadness. No one wants to have fun in a war zone." The Deathworlder nodded, understanding their doubts. "I know it seems strange, but I believe we can find joy even in the darkest times. Sometimes we need to take a break and enjoy life. That's what the park is for." The aliens watched as he pulled out a small device. With a few taps, colorful images appeared in the air, showing thrilling rides, laughter, and games. The images danced before their eyes, and some aliens felt their hearts lift for the first time in years. "Come on," the Deathworlder urged, his eyes shining with excitement. "Let's go see it together. You'll have a great time, I promise." Slowly, the aliens began to feel curious. The idea of a place filled with laughter and joy seemed almost magical. One by one, they stepped forward, hesitating but intrigued. Could they really leave their troubles behind, even for a little while? With a mix of fear and excitement, the aliens followed the Deathworlder. They had no idea what awaited them in the theme park, but they felt a glimmer of hope. In a world torn apart by war, perhaps fun and friendship could be found again. As they walked toward the park, the shadows of despair began to lift, hinting at a brighter future ahead. The aliens followed the Deathworlder through the ruined streets, their hearts racing with curiosity. They had never seen a human before, and now they were walking alongside one. As they moved closer to the theme park, the sounds of laughter and music filled the air, growing louder with each step. It felt strange to hear such joyful noise in a place that had known only war and sadness. Finally, they arrived at the entrance of the theme park, and the sight took their breath away. Bright lights blinked like stars against the dark sky, and colorful banners waved in the breeze. The entrance was decorated with big, cheerful signs that read "Welcome to Fun World" in bold letters. The aliens stood still, their eyes wide in amazement. How could such a vibrant place exist here? "Welcome to the park," the Deathworlder announced, his voice full of excitement. He gestured grandly to the entrance, as if showing off a grand treasure. "This is a place for everyone to enjoy. There are games, rides, and so much fun waiting for you." One of the aliens, a small creature with blue skin and big eyes, looked up at the Deathworlder. "Is it safe? Can we really have fun here?" she asked, her voice trembling a little. The Deathworlder nodded with a smile. "Of course. This park is a safe haven. Here, we can forget about the war and enjoy life. Come on, let's go inside." With a mix of hesitation and excitement, the aliens stepped through the entrance. As soon as they entered, the world around them transformed. They were greeted by a huge, colorful fountain that sprayed water high into the air, glistening in the light. Children, alien children, ran past them, giggling as they splashed in the water, their laughter ringing like music. "Look over there." The Deathworlder pointed to a massive roller coaster that twisted and turned in the sky. "That's the Thrill Seeker. It goes upside down and spins around. Who wants to try it?" The aliens exchanged nervous glances. The thought of riding a roller coaster was both thrilling and frightening. "What if we fall?" one of them asked, clutching his weapon tightly. The Deathworlder laughed. "You won't fall. It's all about having fun and feeling free. Trust me, it's safe. You'll see." Slowly, the aliens began to explore. They watched as other visitors played games, trying to win colorful prizes. Some aliens dared each other to join in, and soon they were throwing balls, trying to knock down targets. Laughter filled the air as they cheered for each other, their fears melting away. "See, this is fun," the Deathworlder shouted, clapping his hands. "You're doing great." As the aliens played, something amazing happened. They started to forget their worries. For the first time in a long time, they felt joy creeping into their hearts. They were no longer just warriors. They were friends, laughing and sharing moments together. "Let's ride the Thrill Seeker," one brave alien shouted, raising her hands in excitement. The others cheered, and they all raced toward the roller coaster. The Deathworlder led the way, his laughter echoing as they climbed aboard. As the ride began to move, the aliens' hearts raced with fear and excitement. They were not sure what to expect, but they knew one thing for sure. This was a strange and wonderful surprise that could change everything. The roller coaster climbed higher and higher, and as they reached the top, they let out a collective scream, part fear, part joy. As they plunged down, feeling free like never before. As the aliens boarded the Thrill Seeker, their hearts raced with a mix of fear and excitement. The Deathworlder sat in the front seat, grinning widely. "This is going to be amazing," he shouted, his voice full of energy. The aliens, though nervous, could not help but feel a spark of anticipation. The ride slowly climbed up, higher and higher. The aliens looked down and saw the park spreading out beneath them, colors flashing, laughter ringing in the air, and bright lights blinking like stars. For a moment, everything felt magical. They were no longer just fighters in a war. They were about to experience something new, something exciting. As they reached the top, the world below seemed to pause. "Hold on tight," the Deathworlder yelled, and before they could react, the roller coaster plunged down with a rush. Screams of joy and terror filled the air as the ride zoomed through twists and turns. The aliens felt the wind rush past them, their worries blown away like leaves in the breeze. When the ride finally stopped, the aliens stumbled out, breathless and laughing. "That was incredible," one of them shouted, his eyes wide with wonder. "I want to go again." The Deathworlder laughed, his joy contagious. "That's the spirit. There's so much more to see. Let's go." They raced through the park, exploring every corner. Bright stalls lined the pathways, offering games that tested their skills. One game involved throwing balls at stacked cans, and the aliens quickly gathered around. "Who can knock them down?" the Deathworlder challenged, grinning. One brave alien stepped forward, taking a deep breath. He threw the ball, and with a satisfying crash, the cans toppled over. The crowd erupted in cheers. "Well done," the Deathworlder clapped. "You're a natural." The aliens began to take turns, trying their best and celebrating each other's victories. The laughter and cheers filled the air, pushing away the memories of the war outside. For the first time, they felt like a team, united in their quest for fun. Next, they found a huge inflatable bounce house. The Deathworlder jumped in, his laughter echoing as he bounced high into the air. "Come join me," he called out. The aliens exchanged glances, unsure at first, but soon they were bouncing beside him, their worries forgotten. They jumped and laughed, enjoying the simple pleasure of being carefree. A little alien girl giggled as she flew high, her scales shimmering in the light. "I feel like I can touch the sky," she exclaimed, her joy infectious. After bouncing, they wandered over to a giant Ferris wheel. The Deathworlder insisted they ride together, and as they climbed into the bright, colorful cars, the aliens felt a sense of togetherness. As the wheel turned slowly, they rose high above the park. From up there, they could see everything: the games, the rides, and the smiling faces of everyone around. "This is amazing," one alien exclaimed, looking out at the view. "I never thought we could have fun like this." The Deathworlder nodded, his smile bright. "See, fun is everywhere if you just look for it. We can make this place a new home, even if it's just for a little while." As the Ferris wheel reached its peak, the aliens felt a rush of happiness. For the first time in ages, they felt hope. They realized that in this strange park, they could find joy together, leaving their fears behind, if only for a moment. After a day filled with laughter and joy, the Deathworlder gathered the aliens around him, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "I have a great idea," he exclaimed, clapping his hands together. "Let's have a series of fun challenges. We can compete in games and see who has the best skills." The aliens exchanged curious glances. "What kind of challenges?" asked the tall alien with blue skin, raising an eyebrow. "Games that are easy to learn but really fun," the Deathworlder replied, grinning. "We'll have teams, and everyone can join in. It will be a chance for all of us to work together." The group buzzed with excitement. They had come together as friends, and now they could bond even more through friendly competition. "I'm in," shouted a small green alien with big eyes. "Let's do this." The Deathworlder clapped his hands again. "Great. Let's start with the first challenge, the balloon toss." He explained the game, where players would toss water balloons back and forth without letting them pop. The goal was to see how far apart they could stand while still catching the balloons. The aliens divided into teams, their excitement growing. As the first team took their positions, the Deathworlder threw the first balloon high in the air. The aliens laughed as they tried to catch it. The balloons flew everywhere. Some popped, splashing water on their faces and making them squeal with surprise. "Keep going. You're doing great," the Deathworlder cheered, his encouragement lifting their spirits. They laughed and shouted as they tossed the balloons back and forth, their laughter echoing across the park. The game was messy, but it brought them together in a way they had never experienced before. As the game continued, one alien threw a balloon too hard, and it splattered against a nearby wall. Everyone burst into laughter, including the alien who had thrown it. "Looks like I need to work on my aim," he said, grinning sheepishly. After the balloon toss, the Deathworlder introduced the next challenge, the obstacle relay race. He set up a course with cones, tunnels, and hoops, explaining how it worked. Each team had to navigate the course as fast as they could, passing a baton to their teammate at the end. The aliens lined up, their competitive spirits rising. "This will be fun," said the small, green alien, bouncing on her feet. When the whistle blew, they raced through the course, their hearts pounding with excitement. Some aliens were fast, while others were careful and steady. They cheered each other on, shouting words of encouragement. "You can do it. Go, go, go." The atmosphere was electric, filled with energy and laughter. As they reached the final leg of the race, the tension grew. The last two aliens were neck and neck, racing toward the finish line. The crowd roared with excitement, and the atmosphere was alive with cheers. In the end, the blue-skinned alien just barely crossed the finish line first, throwing his arms up in victory. The Deathworlder clapped loudly, impressed. "What a race! You all did amazing," he exclaimed. The aliens were out of breath, but their hearts were full. They had come together to compete, but they had also formed bonds stronger than ever before. They shared smiles and laughter, feeling more like a family than ever. As they gathered for the final challenge, they knew this day would be one they would never forget. A day of fun, friendship, and the joy of being together in a place where happiness thrived, even amid a war-torn world. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over Fun World, the Deathworlder gathered all the aliens around him. They were still buzzing with excitement from the challenges they had just completed. "You all did an amazing job today," he said, his smile bright. "Now it's time for the final challenge. But first, let's take a moment to celebrate what we've accomplished together." The aliens looked at one another, their faces beaming with happiness. They had come together as strangers, but now they felt like friends. The Deathworlder led them to a large picnic area, filled with colorful blankets and delicious food. "I thought we could share a meal together to celebrate our new friendships." As they sat down, the aliens began to explore the spread of food laid out before them. There were plates of bright fruits, steaming pastries, and colorful drinks. The sweet smells filled the air, making their mouths water. "This looks wonderful," said a tall, red alien, eagerly reaching for a fruit that sparkled like stars. "Try this," the Deathworlder encouraged, handing out different dishes. They tasted foods they had never tried before, and each bite brought smiles to their faces. They shared stories about their lives, their homes, and the challenges they faced. As they talked and laughed, they found common ground, realizing that they were more alike than they had thought. "I never imagined we could have fun like this," said a small alien with purple skin. "Back home, we only think about fighting. This is different." The Deathworlder nodded, understanding their struggles. "Sometimes we forget that there is more to life than fighting. We can find joy and friendship even in the toughest times." After the meal, the Deathworlder stood up again, his voice filled with enthusiasm. "Now let's have our final challenge. This one is all about teamwork. We will build something together. A giant structure using whatever we can find in the park." The aliens looked around, puzzled but intrigued. "What kind of structure?" asked the blue-skinned alien, scratching his head. "A fort," the Deathworlder replied. "We will divide into teams and gather materials to build the best fort possible. This will be a test of teamwork and creativity." Excited chatter filled the air as the aliens quickly divided into teams. They raced off to gather supplies, laughing and chatting as they searched for anything they could use. Large cardboard boxes, colorful banners, and even some inflatable decorations. As they built their forts, the aliens communicated and worked together, sharing ideas and skills. The tall alien used her strength to lift heavy boxes, while the smaller ones found creative ways to decorate. They encouraged each other, shouting, "That's great, keep going." As the sun dipped below the horizon, the park transformed into a magical place lit by twinkling lights. The aliens stepped back to admire their creations. Each fort was unique, filled with color and creativity. They felt proud of what they had built together. The Deathworlder clapped his hands, gathering everyone for a final look. "You all did fantastic. Look at what you created together. This is true friendship, working together to build something special." As they admired their forts, the aliens felt a warm sense of belonging. They realized that they had come together not just as competitors, but as friends who had shared laughter, challenges, and a wonderful day. In that moment, the war outside faded into the background. They understood that they had found something precious, friendship, and it was stronger than any battle they had faced before. They cheered and celebrated their new bond, knowing this was just the beginning of a beautiful journey together. As the stars twinkled above Fun World, the aliens felt a deep sense of joy and belonging. They had spent a magical day filled with laughter, games, and new friendships. However, as the night wore on, a feeling of unease began to creep into the air. The cheerful music that once filled the park was suddenly interrupted by loud, alarming sounds in the distance. "What was that?" asked a small alien with bright yellow skin, her eyes wide with concern. The group fell silent, their happy faces now turned towards the dark sky, where shadows loomed ominously over the park. "It sounded like an explosion," the Deathworlder replied, frowning. He had experienced enough chaos in his life to recognize the sound of trouble. "We need to check it out." The aliens exchanged nervous glances, but knew they had to stick together. "We should see what's happening," the tall blue alien said, taking a deep breath. "We can't let fear stop us." As they moved cautiously toward the source of the noise, the park seemed to change. The bright lights flickered and shadows danced around them. The joyful atmosphere was replaced by tension and worry. "What if it's the war?" whispered a red alien, trembling. The Deathworlder shook his head. "No matter what we face, we will face it together. We are friends now." They finally reached the edge of the park, where the sounds were coming from. To their shock, they saw a group of armored aliens, warriors from another faction, surrounding the entrance. They were causing chaos, breaking rides, and scaring the visitors. "Why are they here?" the small yellow alien gasped. "They can't ruin our fun." The Deathworlder narrowed his eyes. "They're looking for trouble, but we won't let them destroy what we've built here." Feeling the surge of bravery, the Deathworlder stepped forward. "Hey, what do you want?" he shouted, his voice firm but calm. The warriors turned, their eyes narrowing as they spotted the group of aliens. "What are you doing here, Deathworlder? This is not your place," one of the armored aliens barked, pointing a weapon threateningly. The Deathworlder stood tall, unwilling to back down. "We are here to enjoy ourselves and make friends. We won't let you destroy our peace." The warriors laughed, their voices cold and harsh. "Peace? In a war zone? You're foolish to think you can have fun while others suffer." The small group of aliens felt their courage waver. The words of the armored aliens echoed in their minds, reminding them of their own struggles and fears. But the Deathworlder would not give up. "Everyone deserves a chance to find joy, even here. You can join us. Leave your fighting behind and find friendship instead." Some of the warriors exchanged glances, unsure of how to respond. A few looked intrigued, as if the idea of fun was new to them. But their leader stepped forward, shaking his head. "We don't have time for games. We are here for power, not play." With that, he raised his weapon, ready to attack. The Deathworlder's heart raced, but he stood firm. "You can choose another way. You can be part of this community, where laughter and friendship are stronger than any weapon." In that moment, the small group of aliens gathered closer, their fear replaced by determination. They knew they had to stand together, not just for themselves, but for the spirit of joy they had discovered in the park. As the tension grew, the Deathworlder realized that their words and actions could change everything. They could either let fear win or stand united against the darkness that threatened to invade their newfound paradise. The sun had just begun to rise over Fun World, casting long shadows as the Deathworlder and his friends prepared for the challenge ahead. The night before had been filled with laughter and joy, but now, a heavy tension hung in the air. The warriors who had threatened their peace were still lurking nearby, and the group knew they had to act quickly to protect their newfound paradise. The Deathworlder gathered everyone around him, his expression serious but calm. "We must stand together. They may think they can take away our joy, but we will not let that happen. This park belongs to all of us." The aliens nodded, their hearts beating faster. They had come so far, forming friendships and creating a place where happiness thrived. The thought of losing it filled them with determination. "What's the plan?" asked the small yellow alien, her eyes wide with concern. "We will confront the warriors," the Deathworlder replied. "But we won't fight them with weapons. We will show them the strength of our unity. We will invite them to join us, to be part of this community." As they moved toward the entrance of Fun World, the group felt a mix of fear and hope. They had never faced warriors like these before, but they knew they were fighting for something important. They arrived at the park's edge, where the armored aliens waited, their expressions cold and unyielding. The leader of the warriors stepped forward, his armor glinting in the morning light. "What do you want, Deathworlder? You think you can just keep your little games while the war rages on?" The Deathworlder stood tall, his voice steady. "We want peace. We want everyone to enjoy this park and the friendships we've built. You don't have to fight us. You can choose a different path." The warriors exchanged glances, their eyes betraying a flicker of uncertainty. The leader laughed harshly. "And what do you offer in return? What good is friendship in a war?" One of the aliens from the group, a tall blue alien, stepped forward. "Friendship is powerful. It can change hearts and minds. We were once afraid of each other, but now we stand united. You can join us and learn that joy can exist even in the darkest times." For a moment, the leader hesitated. He had always been taught that strength came from fear and control. But here was this group of diverse aliens, standing together, their eyes filled with hope and courage. "You really believe that this can work?" he asked, his voice softer now. "Yes," shouted the small green alien, her excitement contagious. "Join us. Experience the fun, the laughter, and the friendships we've made. We can be stronger together." As they spoke, more warriors began to listen. They had seen the bonds formed in the park, the joy radiating from the Deathworlder and his friends. Slowly, some began to lower their weapons, intrigued by the idea of friendship. "Maybe we have been wrong," the leader admitted, glancing at his warriors. "Maybe we can learn from you." The Deathworlder smiled, his heart swelling with hope. "Together, we can create something beautiful. We can bring light to this world instead of darkness." At that moment, the atmosphere changed. The warriors, once fierce and unyielding, began to step forward, uncertain but willing to listen. One by one, they sheathed their weapons and joined the group. The Deathworlder felt a rush of joy. They had turned a potential battle into a moment of unity. The park, once a battleground, was now a place of hope and friendship. As the sun rose higher in the sky, casting golden rays over Fun World, the Deathworlder knew that they had not only protected their paradise, but had also opened the door to a brighter future, a future where laughter, joy, and friendship would prevail over fear and conflict. The sun began to rise over Fun World, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. After a long night filled with tension and uncertainty, the Deathworlder and the aliens stood together, ready to face whatever came next. The warriors had retreated, but the worry in their hearts remained. What would happen to their park? What would happen to their new friendships? As the group gathered, the Deathworlder looked around at his friends. "We have faced a lot together, and we can't let fear stop us now. We need to rebuild and make this place a symbol of hope." The aliens nodded, their spirits lifted by his words. They had found joy and friendship in this park, and they were determined to keep it safe. "Let's clean up the mess they made," said the tall blue alien. "We can fix everything together." With a renewed sense of purpose, the group got to work. They picked up broken pieces, cleared debris, and restored the rides. The sun rose higher, bringing warmth and light to the park. As they worked, laughter began to fill the air again. They shared stories, joked with one another, and even played small games while cleaning. The spirit of fun returned, helping to ease their worries. As the day went on, More aliens from different factions began to arrive at Funworld. They had heard about the chaos but were drawn to the joy they sensed in the air. One by one, they joined in to help. The park began to come alive again, and the spirit of friendship grew stronger. "Look," a small alien shouted, pointing to the horizon. "They are coming here." At first, the newcomers were cautious, unsure of what to expect. But the Deathworlder stepped forward, welcoming them with open arms. "Welcome to Funworld. We are rebuilding, and we would love your help." Some aliens hesitated, but others stepped forward. They wanted to be part of something special, something bigger than their past conflicts. The Deathworlder's words had inspired them. Soon, aliens from different factions were working side by side, fixing the rides and cleaning up the park. As the hours passed, the atmosphere shifted from fear to excitement. They began to share their own stories, learning about each other's struggles and dreams. Laughter echoed through the park as they discovered common ground. Each new friend brought fresh ideas and energy, helping the park flourish once more. By the time the sun began to set again, Funworld was almost restored to its former glory. Colorful lights twinkled around the park, and the sounds of laughter filled the air. The Deathworlder gathered everyone together for a moment of celebration. "Today, we have created something beautiful," he said, his voice strong and clear. "This park is not just a place for fun. It is a place for friendship, understanding, and hope. We have shown that even in the darkest times, we can choose joy over fear." The aliens cheered, their hearts swelling with pride. They had built not just a park, but a community, a family united by their shared experiences and dreams. As they celebrated, the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, and the future felt bright. They knew that challenges might come again, but they were ready to face them together. With friendship as their foundation, they would build a new future, one filled with laughter, joy, and the promise of brighter days ahead. Funworld had become a symbol of hope, and they would protect it at all costs. The stars twinkled brightly over Funworld, illuminating the park filled with laughter and joy. After the hard work of rebuilding, the Deathworlder and the aliens stood together, proud of what they had created. The park was no longer just a place of fun. It had become a symbol of hope for all who entered. As the new friends gathered around a large bonfire in the center of the park, the Deathworlder looked around at the smiling faces. "Tonight, we celebrate not just our hard work, but the bonds we formed," he said, his voice filled with warmth. "Together, we have shown that friendship can overcome any challenge." The aliens cheered, their spirits high. The atmosphere was filled with excitement as they shared stories and laughed around the fire. The small green alien with big eyes spoke up. "I never thought I could have friends from different worlds. This is amazing." One of the newcomers, a tall alien with shimmering scales, nodded. "Before coming here, I only knew how to fight. I never thought I could enjoy life like this." The group agreed, their hearts swelling with gratitude. They had all come from different places, facing their own struggles, but now they had found unity in their shared experiences. As the night went on, the Deathworlder introduced a special tradition, a storytelling circle. Each alien was invited to share their story, their hopes, and their dreams for the future. The stories varied, filled with tales of bravery, loss, and laughter. Some spoke of battles fought, while others shared moments of kindness they had experienced. The small yellow alien stood up, her voice steady. "I want to create a place where everyone can feel safe and happy, no matter where they come from. A place like this park." Her words resonated deeply, and everyone nodded in agreement. The blue-skinned alien followed, adding, "And I want to explore the stars with my new friends. There is so much out there to see and learn." As each story was told, the bonds between the aliens grew stronger. They realized that their differences were not barriers but bridges that connected them. They could learn from one another and support each other as they faced the challenges of the future. The Deathworlder smiled, feeling proud of what they had accomplished together. "Let's make a promise," he said, his eyes shining with hope. No matter what happens, we will stand together. We will support each other, laugh together, and face the world as one community." The aliens cheered in agreement, their voices ringing out into the night. They had formed a family, united by friendship and hope. As the bonfire flickered, casting a warm glow around them, the Deathworlder looked up at the stars. This park has shown us that even in the darkest times, there is light and joy to be found. We will share this message with others. We will bring hope to those who need it most. The group nodded, feeling inspired. They knew that their journey was just beginning. They had turned a place of chaos into a haven of friendship, and they would spread that spirit beyond the park. As the night deepened, they made plans for the future, events, games, and gatherings that would invite more friends into their community. They would create a new world, one filled with laughter, understanding, and love. And in that moment, surrounded by friends, laughter, and the promise of tomorrow, they understood that hope was not just a dream. It was something they could build together, one joyful moment at a time. The Galactic Council, the powerful group that keeps peace in the galaxy, has discovered a new planet, one unlike any they've seen before. This place is a death world, a planet so dangerous that only the strongest and most fearless beings can survive. The council members are shocked by what they learn. They know about peaceful worlds with kind and gentle creatures, but this death world is completely different. It's wild, harsh, and filled with dangers that would terrify most species. The creatures here, known as Deathworlders, have grown up fighting to survive every day. They are tough, smart, and have strange and terrifying ways of dealing with threats. As the council gathers in their massive meeting hall, murmurs and worried whispers fill the air. Representatives from many planets sit in rows, looking tense. They know that if Deathworlders ever decide to become aggressive, no one will be safe. The Galactic Council has always managed to solve problems peacefully, but this time, they're facing something they can't quite understand. In the center of the hall stands Council Leader Zara, a wise and experienced leader who has dealt with many crises before. She raises a hand, and the murmuring stops. Everyone looks at her, waiting for her to speak. "We are dealing with something unprecedented," she begins, her voice steady but serious. "The Deathworlders are not like us. Their strength, their tactics, if they decide to bring their ways to the rest of the galaxy, it could mean chaos for everyone." A nervous-looking council member, a blue-skinned alien named Torin, raises a shaky hand. "Council Leader Zara, is it possible these Deathworlders are just misunderstood? Maybe we can talk to them, understand them. Not every strong species is dangerous." But Zara shakes her head. "Torin, these beings have lived in extreme conditions their whole lives. Their planet is hostile. Their tactics and strategies for survival are shocking. They do not solve problems as we do. Their ways are harsh and violent, and they have mastered methods we can barely imagine." Another council member, Reinar, a tall and armored alien from a warrior species, stands up. "Then maybe we should prepare ourselves. If these Deathworlders are as dangerous as you say, we need to be ready to defend ourselves." His voice is firm, but everyone can hear the hint of fear in his tone. The room grows tense as more council members join the discussion. Some agree with Torin, wanting to believe the Deathworlders can be peaceful. Others side with Reinar, seeing them as a potential threat that needs careful observation. But no one has any real answers. They don't know what these Deathworlders truly want, or if they even care about the Council's existence. Zara raises her hand again, and the room quiets. "We will observe them carefully and gather more information. This is not a time for assumptions. We must be cautious but prepared." As the meeting ends, the council members exchange worried looks. They understand that this death world could bring chaos, and they feel an uneasy chill. The Galactic Council decided they needed answers about the Deathworlders. They couldn't risk underestimating this mysterious, dangerous species, so they arranged a first contact mission, hoping to understand what kind of people these Deathworlders were. The council carefully selected a small team of diplomats and scientists for the mission. Each member was trained to remain calm and adapt to different alien cultures. But as they prepared to meet the Deathworlders, they felt nervous. The stories they'd heard about the deadly environment, the intense survival tactics, left them uneasy. However, they knew that the council was counting on them. The team arrived on the Deathworld in a sleek silver spaceship, landing in a rough area filled with thick forests, strange plants, and unpredictable weather. Their sensors showed wild energy patterns and dangerous creatures lurking nearby. Even the air seemed heavier here, thick with an intense, unfamiliar atmosphere. The team felt the weight of the planet's challenges pressing down on them. As they stepped out of the ship, they were greeted by a group of Deathworlders. These beings were tall, muscular, and their eyes had a sharp, almost predatory focus. Each of them moved with a confidence that only came from surviving countless dangers. Their clothing was simple but practical, and they carried tools and weapons that the council team had never seen before. The Deathworlders looked at the visitors with guarded expressions, their faces calm but alert, as if prepared for anything. The council's lead diplomat, a small and gentle alien named Yana, took a step forward and offered a respectful bow. She spoke in a soft, friendly tone. "Greetings from the Galactic Council. We come in peace and seek understanding. We hope to learn about your world and share knowledge." The Deathworlders' leader, a fierce-looking individual named Kira, looked at her with a slight smirk. "Peace," she replied, her voice carrying a hint of amusement. "On this world, peace is rare. Survival is what matters here." Her gaze swept over the team, as if assessing their strengths and weaknesses. Trying to ease the tension, Yana continued, "We understand that your world is unique, and we are impressed by your strength and resilience. We wish to learn from you and to build a respectful relationship." Kira raised an eyebrow, amused by Yana's cautious words. "Respect. Then prove it," she said, gesturing to a nearby area where Deathworlders were engaged in a combat practice, sparring with intense and brutal techniques. "If you want to understand us, you'll need to survive here first. Let's see how strong you really are." The council team exchanged nervous glances. They hadn't expected this, but they had no choice. They needed to prove they were serious. Hesitantly, one of the council's security officers stepped forward, signaling his willingness to participate. The Deathworlders watched closely, their expressions unreadable. As the officer engaged in combat with one of the Deathworlders, he quickly realized how unprepared he was. The Deathworlders' movements were fast and calculated, each strike precise and unforgiving. Within moments, the officer was outmatched, struggling just to keep up. When it was over, Kira looked at the council team and smiled, a hint of respect in her eyes. "Welcome to our world," she said. "Now you know that survival here is no small task. If you wish to stay, you must understand this." The council team was shaken. They had come to learn, but they realized that the Deathworlders were unlike anyone they had ever encountered. Back at the Galactic Council headquarters, the team who had made first contact with the Deathworlders sent back reports of their experiences. Every council member was shocked to read about the Deathworlders' strange, intense fighting style. The team's security officer had barely survived the encounter, and he described tactics that were unlike anything the council had seen before. To learn more, the council's top military analysts were assigned to study recordings of the Deathworlders' combat techniques. They sat in a quiet, dark room, watching as the Deathworlders practiced what looked like chaotic, violent fighting. But as they studied closer, they realized it wasn't chaos at all. It was something far more calculated and dangerous. One analyst, General Lyra, leaned forward, studying each move carefully. "They're not just fighting," she said, almost in awe. "They're using everything around them, the ground, the plants, even the wind direction. They don't waste a single movement." Another analyst, a young officer named Merrick, was equally shocked. "Look at how they move. It's like they're always expecting an attack from every direction." They're constantly aware, every second. The Deathworlders didn't fight in predictable patterns. They were always shifting, changing tactics mid-fight to keep their opponent guessing. Sometimes they would appear to retreat, only to suddenly turn around and strike with incredible speed. Their movements were wild, yet incredibly efficient. Even the smallest action served a purpose, whether it was to confuse, distract, or set up the next devastating strike. The analysts continued watching, and the footage showed a group of Deathworlders training together in a way that stunned the council team. They weren't just focused on physical strength, they were training their minds. Some Deathworlders practiced fighting blindfolded, relying on their hearing and instincts to dodge attacks. Others were sparring in total silence, using subtle hand signals and gestures to communicate without words. General Lyra couldn't help but feel a strange sense of admiration. They are training to survive in every possible way. They're using their entire environment, working together as one mind. It's brilliant in a terrifying way. But as the analysts continued to watch, their admiration turned to fear. These tactics would make the Deathworlders nearly unstoppable in battle. Their unpredictability, their readiness to use every advantage, and their ability to adapt to any situation meant that even the Council's best-trained soldiers would struggle against them. Council leader Zara called a meeting after hearing the analysts' findings. "This is a level of combat we have never prepared for," she said, addressing the room full of nervous officials. "Their tactics are designed to overwhelm and confuse their enemies. If we were to face them in battle, I fear we would not stand a chance." A representative from a warrior species stood up, shaking his head in disbelief. "We pride ourselves on strength and skill, but we have never fought like this. It's as if they were born to fight, to survive no matter what." The council was silent, each member processing the gravity of the situation. These Deathworlders were no ordinary beings. Their tactics could not only challenge the council's army, but also expose the council's weaknesses. Leader Zara finally spoke, her voice firm. "If they decide to fight us, we'll need more than strategy. We'll need to think like them, to understand their way of survival. Only then will we have any hope of avoiding a full-scale disaster." With these words, the council realized they were not just dealing with a new species, they were facing a completely new way of war, and it was terrifying. The Galactic Council finally decided they couldn't wait any longer. The Deathworlders' unpredictable tactics were a threat, and if the Council wanted to protect the galaxy, they needed to take action. They sent a team of elite soldiers to the Deathworld, prepared for whatever might come. Each soldier was equipped with the latest weapons, armor, and technology, but they knew this mission wouldn't be easy. The Deathworlders were like nothing they had ever faced. As the Council's ship landed, the soldiers moved out, forming a careful line as they advanced. The Deathworld's landscape was harsh and unforgiving. Thick, dark forests surrounded them, with strange, sharp plants and a rough, rocky ground beneath their feet. The air was filled with strange sounds, rustling from creatures they couldn't see. Every soldier felt a chill, sensing the danger all around them. Suddenly, without warning, the Deathworlders struck. They emerged from the shadows, their movements quick and silent. The Council soldiers barely had time to react. One Deathworlder leaped down from a tree, catching a soldier off guard and disarming him in seconds. Another soldier tried to aim his weapon, but a Deathworlder struck him from the side, knocking him down with surprising force. The Deathworlders' tactics were like nothing the soldiers had trained for. They moved unpredictably, using their surroundings as weapons. One Deathworlder threw a handful of sharp stones to distract a group of soldiers, while another used thick branches as makeshift clubs. The soldiers felt overwhelmed. Every movement they made seemed to be anticipated by their enemies. The Council's leader, Commander Reinar, shouted orders through his communication device, trying to keep his soldiers organized. "Stay together, watch your sides, don't let them surround you." But it was no use. The Deathworlders weren't fighting in any way that he could counter. They were fast, relentless, and fearless, attacking from every direction. One soldier managed to fire his weapon, hitting a Deathworlder and knocking them back. But instead of retreating, the Deathworlder quickly rolled to the side, avoiding the next blast and charging forward again. The Council soldiers realized these Deathworlders would not back down easily. Injured or not, they kept fighting with a fierce determination, as if their lives depended on it. The battlefield was pure chaos. Smoke, dust, and the sounds of shouting filled the air. The Deathworlders used every trick and every resource. Some even set traps, using sharp vines and fallen logs to trip up the soldiers. The Council's weapons were powerful, but the soldiers had no time to aim properly. They were constantly turning, trying to spot the next attacker, but the Deathworlders were too fast. Within minutes, the Council's carefully planned formation had broken apart. Soldiers were scattered, each fighting alone, struggling to survive. Commander Reinar tried to regroup his forces, but it was impossible. The Deathworlders had turned the battlefield into a scene of utter chaos. Finally, after what felt like hours, Commander Reinar gave the order to retreat. Fall back. Everyone, back to the ship. The soldiers scrambled to escape, backing away from the relentless Deathworlders. As they retreated, they realized just how outmatched they were. They had come prepared for a normal battle, but this was something else entirely. As the Council soldiers made it back to their ship, bruised and shaken, they knew they had just faced something they couldn't understand. The Deathworlders had turned a simple fight into a lesson in survival, using every skill and tactic they knew to show the Council just how powerful they truly were. After their crushing defeat, the Galactic Council was shaken. They realized the Deathworlders were not just strong fighters. They were also masters of using the battlefield itself as a weapon. But what the Council hadn't anticipated was that the Deathworlders' strength didn't end with physical combat. The Deathworlders were about to show the Council that war was as much a mental game as it was physical. As Council members gathered in their grand hall to discuss their next steps, a disturbing report arrived. The Deathworlders had begun psychological tactics on the Council's forces stationed on their planet. The Council soldiers reported strange things happening during the night. Eerie sounds, flickering lights, and unsettling messages left in places they thought were secure. The soldiers felt like they were being watched, and this constant sense of unease began to wear them down. On their remote outposts, the Council soldiers found their sleep disturbed by odd noises and shadows moving in the dark. Sometimes they would hear faint laughter echoing through the trees, or see distant lights that disappeared when they tried to investigate. One night, a soldier found a message scratched into the dirt outside his tent. "Are you ready to survive?" The message was brief but chilling, sending a clear signal that the Deathworlders were toying with them. The Deathworlders knew that fear could be a powerful weapon, and they used it skillfully. They never directly attacked. Instead, they let the Council soldiers' imaginations run wild. Every sound, every rustling leaf became a potential threat. The soldiers grew increasingly paranoid, jumping at even the slightest movement. Their own minds turned against them as the Deathworlders pushed them to the edge of their sanity. Commander Reinar, who had led the initial battle, tried to keep his soldiers calm. He reminded them that these were just tactics meant to scare them, that there was no real danger. But even he was starting to feel the strain. The Deathworlders' tactics were so subtle, so perfectly timed, that even a seasoned commander like Reinar began to feel unsettled. One evening, as the soldiers gathered for a meal, they found their supplies missing. Someone, or something, had stolen their food without leaving any trace. Reinar ordered a thorough search, but no tracks were found. It was as if the Deathworlders could move through the camp unseen, a thought that sent chills through everyone. The next night, the Deathworlders left strange symbols drawn in bright colors around the camp. The symbols seemed random but felt somehow threatening. Every soldier interpreted them differently, adding to the confusion and fear. One soldier believed the symbols were warnings. Another thought they were meant to show the Council soldiers that they were being watched every second. Day by day, The soldiers grew weaker, exhausted from lack of sleep and the constant pressure. They were trained to handle physical combat, but this was different. The Deathworlders were using their own minds as weapons against them, sowing fear and distrust. Some soldiers even began to suspect each other, thinking that one of them might be working with the Deathworlders to plant these strange signs and steal supplies. Commander Rinar realized that they couldn't continue like this. He knew that if they stayed much longer, the soldiers' morale would be completely shattered. The Deathworlders had turned the Council's own soldiers into their own worst enemies, making them doubt everything around them. In a final attempt to keep order, Reiner gathered his soldiers and spoke firmly. "This is what they want, to make us afraid, to make us doubt. We have to stay focused. Remember, we're stronger together." But even as he spoke, Reiner could feel the doubt creeping in. The Deathworlders had started a game of the mind, and the Council was beginning to lose. Back at the Galactic Council headquarters, reports from the Deathworld mission continued to arrive. Every message brought worse news. Soldiers were exhausted, mentally strained, and supplies were mysteriously disappearing. The Council was beginning to panic. They had never faced enemies who fought with both their strength and their minds. The Council's Grand Hall, usually calm and orderly, was now a place of chaos. Representatives from all over the galaxy gathered, voices rising in frustration and fear. Council leader Zura stood at the head of the room, trying to keep everyone calm, but even she couldn't hide the worry in her eyes. "We must take action immediately," shouted Reiner, a stern representative from a warrior species. "Our soldiers are losing their minds out there. The Deathworlders are playing with them like toys. We can't let this continue." Torin, a nervous-looking alien with blue skin, nodded quickly. "Yes, we thought we understood the Deathworlders, but they're beyond anything we know. If they're using mental tactics now, who knows what else they have in store." Council leader Zura raised her hand, signaling for silence. "I understand everyone's concern," she began, "but we can't act recklessly. These Deathworlders are smart, and they seem to be studying us as much as we are studying them. We need a new strategy, one that focuses on understanding their ways, not just fighting them." Her words, though calm, did little to reassure the Council. The fear in the room was growing. No one could ignore the truth. The Council's usual tactics were useless against the Deathworlders. Their technology and training meant nothing if their soldiers couldn't even think clearly under pressure. Another Council member, Lyra, an elder with sharp eyes, spoke up. "Perhaps we need to send more resources, more soldiers. Overwhelm them with numbers." But Zara shook her head. "If we continue to push soldiers into their territory without understanding their ways, we will only lose more of them. The Deathworlders know their environment, and they're using it against us. Numbers alone won't save us." In the back of the room, a younger Council member, Merrick, raised his voice. "What if we attempt communication instead? Ask them what they want. Negotiate. They haven't made any aggressive moves outside their planet. Maybe they're only defending themselves." The idea shocked many in the room. For the Council, showing any sign of negotiation was rare. They were the strongest power in the galaxy, and they usually solved issues through strength. But now, faced with the Deathworlders' unpredictable tactics, even negotiation seemed like a possible answer. Council leader Zura considered Merrick's words carefully. "Perhaps a small team could try reaching out. If we show that we respect their strength, they may be open to a discussion. It could be risky, but it may be our best chance to stop this without more loss." The Council was divided. Some felt that showing respect to the Deathworlders would make the Council look weak, while others thought it was the only option left. The fear in the room was nearly tangible. Everyone understood that the usual ways of dealing with threats had failed against the Deathworlders. As the Council debated, Zara felt a heavy weight on her shoulders. She knew this situation was unlike any the Council had ever faced. If they didn't find a way to reach an understanding with the Deathworlders, it could lead to a full-scale disaster for the entire galaxy. After hours of heated discussion, The council finally agreed. They would assemble a small team, trained not just for battle but for diplomacy. They would try to communicate with the Deathworlders, to understand their motivations, and hopefully find a way to coexist. The council was in panic mode, but they had no choice. After much debate, the Galactic Council decided to take a bold step. While they had agreed to attempt communication with the Deathworlders, tensions were high, and the threat still loomed. The council couldn't shake the feeling that the Deathworlders might strike again, and waiting could prove fatal. Commander Reinar was frustrated. "We can't wait any longer. What if they take advantage of our desire for peace? We need to show strength, to remind them we are not weak." Zara understood his concern. She had seen how the soldiers were suffering, trapped in a mental game they weren't prepared for. But attacking without clear knowledge of their enemy could lead to disaster. "We need to gather more information. A quick strike might catch them off guard and show that we won't back down." Finally, after long discussions, the council decided on a risky attack. They would send a small strike team to a suspected Deathworlder stronghold. The idea was to gather intelligence and disrupt their operations without starting a full-blown war. It was a delicate balance, but the council hoped this would show strength while minimizing risk. The team was assembled quickly. It included Reinar, along with a few of the most skilled soldiers, each carefully chosen for their experience and adaptability. They boarded their sleek ship, equipped with advanced technology and weapons. As they took off, the soldiers were tense but determined. When they reached the Deathworlder territory, the landscape was wild and rugged. Dense forests stretched for miles, hiding countless dangers. Reinar and his team disembarked, moving silently through the trees. They knew they had to remain undetected if they were to succeed. As they crept deeper into the forest, they spotted movement ahead. A group of Deathworlders was training, practicing their combat techniques with the same ruthless efficiency they have displayed before. Reinar gestured for his team to hold back, and they watched, taking mental notes. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoed through the trees. One of the soldiers accidentally stepped on a twig. The Deathworlders turned instantly, their eyes narrowing as they scanned the area. Reinar's heart raced as he signaled for his team to retreat slowly. But it was too late. The Deathworlders had already spotted them. With lightning speed, they moved to surround the team. Reinar knew they had to act fast. "Get ready. We need to fight our way out," he shouted. The Deathworlders charged, fierce and focused. Reinar and his team fought bravely, but they were outnumbered and outmatched. The Deathworlders' tactics were swift and unpredictable, each move calculated to keep the council soldiers off balance. In the chaos of the battle, Reinar saw an opportunity. He spotted a small, narrow path leading deeper into the forest. "Fall back to the path," he yelled. His team quickly retreated, dodging attacks as they moved. As they ran, the Deathworlders pursued them, their movements fluid and deadly. Reinar could feel the tension in the air as he and his team fought to stay one step ahead. They had to reach the path and escape, or they would be overwhelmed. Finally, they burst through the trees and onto the narrow path. Reinar glanced back to see the Deathworlders hesitating. They didn't chase after them as expected. Instead, they stood at the edge of the forest, watching the council soldiers retreat. Reinar's heart sank. The Deathworlders had let them go. "They're trying to send a message," he realized. They wanted the council to understand that they could easily overwhelm them if they chose to. Back on their ship, Reinar and his team took a moment to catch their breath. The attack had not gone as planned. They had gathered no intelligence and had only shown the Deathworlders that they could be defeated in battle. It was a risky move, and it had backfired. As the ship took off, Reinar felt a heavy weight on his shoulders. The council's efforts to intimidate the Deathworlders had only deepened the rift between them. The battle had proven one thing. The council had to change their approach, or they would face a conflict that could destroy them all. After the failed attack on the Deathworlder stronghold, the Galactic Council faced a serious decision. The fight had shown them that their previous tactics would not work. They needed a new plan, one that could lead to peace rather than more conflict. Commander Renar returned to the council with a heavy heart. As he entered the grand hall, he saw familiar faces filled with worry. Zara, the council leader, stood at the front, looking anxious. "Commander Renar," she began, "we have all heard about the attack. What happened?" Renar took a deep breath. "We underestimated the Deathworlders once again. They allowed us to escape, sending a clear message. If we want to avoid total war, we need to reach out to them." The room fell silent. Many council members exchanged worried glances. Some were still convinced that fighting was the only solution, but Reinar's experience told him otherwise. They are not just fierce warriors. They are smart. They have their own ways of thinking. We need to understand them. After long discussions, the council agreed to send a delegation to the Deathworlders. It would be a team of diplomats, along with a few soldiers for protection. They would carry a message of peace and a desire for understanding. Zara chose Reinar to lead this team, knowing he had seen the Deathworlders in action. As the delegation prepared to leave, the atmosphere was tense. Everyone knew the risks involved. Entering Deathworlder territory again was dangerous, and there was no guarantee they would respond to peace talks. However, the council believed this was their best chance to avoid further conflict. The team traveled quickly to the Deathworld planet, their ship carefully landing in a designated area. Reinar stepped off first, scanning the landscape. The same dark forests surrounded them, but this time, the team carried no weapons drawn. Instead, they held a message of peace. As they approached the Deathworlder stronghold, Reinar raised his hands in a gesture of goodwill. He shouted out, "We come in peace. We wish to talk." The area was quiet for a moment, but soon, Deathworlders emerged from the shadows. Their faces were serious, and their eyes were keen, observing the council delegation closely. Reinar's heart raced, but he stood firm. "We want to understand your people and find a way to coexist. We do not want war." One of the Deathworlders stepped forward. He was tall, with a strong presence. His voice was deep and steady as he replied, "You come unarmed. This shows courage. But do you truly wish for peace? Your actions say otherwise." Reinar nodded, feeling the weight of the Deathworlders' words. "We made mistakes. We attacked without understanding you. We were wrong. We want to change that." The Deathworlder leader considered Reinar's words carefully. "Change does not come easily. Trust is earned, not given. You will have to prove your intentions." The talks continued for hours. Reinar and his team listened as the Deathworlders shared their values, their fears, and their history. They learned that the Deathworlders had their own reasons for acting fiercely. They wanted to protect their home and their way of life. As night fell, the atmosphere began to shift. The council delegation and the Deathworlders began to see each other not just as enemies, but as beings with hopes and fears. Reinar felt a glimmer of hope. If they could find common ground, perhaps peace was possible after all. Finally, the Deathworlder leader spoke again. "We will consider your words, Commander Reinar. But understand this, we will not tolerate aggression. If you seek peace, show it through your actions." Reinar agreed, feeling a sense of relief wash over him. They had taken the first step toward understanding, and for the first time, he believed that peace might be within reach. The path ahead would not be easy, but they were finally talking. It was a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. The air was thick with tension as Commander Reinar and the Deathworlder leader sat across from each other. After hours of discussion, both sides needed to make a decision. The idea of peace felt fragile, but the time had come to talk about a deal. The Deathworlder leader, known as Kel, leaned forward, his intense gaze locked on Reinar. "If we are to trust each other, we must establish clear terms. We will protect our land, and in return, you must respect our boundaries. No more attacks, no more invasions." Reinar nodded, eager to agree. We promise we will not invade your territory again, but we ask for your cooperation. If we are to coexist, we must share knowledge. Our worlds are different, and we can learn from each other. Kale paused, his expression thoughtful. Knowledge is power, Commander. What will you offer in return for our cooperation? Reinar considered this carefully. He knew the Council had advanced technology, but the Deathworlders had their own unique skills. We have technology that could help improve your living conditions, assist with medical care, and maybe even share agricultural techniques. In exchange, we ask to learn your survival skills. Your ways of living on a death world could teach us so much. Kale raised an eyebrow, intrigued. You wish to learn our survival skills. You are not afraid of our world. Not anymore, Reinar replied honestly. We respect your strength. We want to understand how you thrive in an environment we find harsh. This knowledge could save lives. After a long silence, Kale nodded slowly. Very well. We will accept your offer, but we will keep a close watch on you. If you break this trust, we will act swiftly. The two leaders shook hands, sealing the agreement. For Reinar, it felt like a monumental step forward. They had created a bond that could change the course of their people's futures. As the sun began to set, the two sides gathered to celebrate the agreement. Council members and Deathworlders mingled, sharing food and stories. It was a strange sight. Warriors from different worlds, once enemies, now finding common ground. Reinar felt a sense of hope as he watched the two groups begin to connect. One Deathworlder shared stories about surviving the harshest storms on their planet. The council members listened intently, asking questions and taking notes. Reinar noticed that curiosity replaced the fear that had once dominated their encounters. However, not all Deathworlders were pleased with the deal. Some remained suspicious of the council's intentions. A small group gathered on the outskirts of the celebration, whispering among themselves. Reinar sensed their distrust, and it worried him. He knew that building trust would take time and effort. Later that night, as Reinar stood on a hill overlooking the encampment, he felt a weight lift from his shoulders. For the first time, there was a possibility of peace, but he also knew the path ahead would not be easy. Both sides had to honor their agreement, or everything could fall apart. The next morning, Reinar gathered his team to discuss their next steps. We need to follow through with our promises, he said. Let's start by sharing our medical technology with the Deathworlders. We can show them our goodwill. As the team prepared to work with their new allies, Reinar felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. They were entering uncharted territory, and the success of their deal depended on trust and cooperation. But if they could make it work, it would change everything. With their strange deal made, both the Council and the Deathworlders took their first steps toward a new beginning. Each side was ready to learn and grow, united by a shared goal of peace. Reinar hoped it would lead to a brighter future for all.